Khonjerab Pass, China's gateway to Pakistan. This is where Chinese exports start their journey to Karachi, some 2,000 kilometers away on the Arabian Sea. In the future, they will go to Gwadar, a port Beijing is leasing in order to have greater access to markets in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. The first stop on the road is the town of Sost. Until recently, the highway was cut off just south of Sost by Atabad Lake, which was created by a landslide in 2010. For 5 years, residents and goods had to cross the lake by boat in a journey that took at least an hour. Unable to drive around the mountain, China just tunneled through it. The project took more than 3 years and cost almost $300 million.
We are happy now and enjoying the tunnel. Before, we had to wait in the area during the winter because of the water through which we had to travel. Now there is no more problem. You just go there, load and come back.
This region of Gilgit-Baltistan was a collection of small kingdoms before being incorporated into Pakistan in the 1970s. It doesn't have provincial status, and its inhabitants cannot vote in national elections, leaving many angry about having no say in this economic corridor.
If I have no right of casting my vote for the Federal Assembly of Pakistan, if I haven't a constitutional right, for what Pakistan is claiming over this land? This is not Pakistan's land and even Chinese land. This is my own land. This is my Gilgit-Baltistan's land.
But the head of the local government insists the project will be a game changer for both the country and the region. From Khonjerab to Sost and the rest of the country, this new Silk Road brings both fear and hope that some of the wealth from the neighbors will trickle down to those on the way.
Move on now to Islamabad, ready to welcome the Chinese President Xi Jinping in the coming hours. Chinese flags, welcome posters, lots of artwork all decorating Pakistan's capital. Xi is expected to announce a $46 billion energy and infrastructure deal with Pakistan. The centrepiece involves expanding what is being called a maritime Silk Road. China wants to link Pakistan's Gwadar port on the Arabian Sea with its far western Xinjiang province. The chairman of the Pakistan-China Institute spoke with CNN about the deal and what it will mean for Pakistan.
This is something which is going to be a game changer for Pakistan, which also means that Pakistan is today the #1 priority in Chinese foreign policy in economic and strategic terms.
The plan is to be China's biggest splurge on economic development in another country to date. For more, let's turn now to Jamie Matzel, who is Senior Advisor to a New York-based global investment firm, also a Senior Fellow of the Atlantic Council. He's also served as Executive Vice President of the Asia Society and joins us from Boston in Massachusetts. And thanks so much, Jamie, for doing so. How much does this mean to Pakistan and what's in it for China?
Well, certainly for Pakistan, it's very important. China is an important neighbor, an important ally, and as the U.S. and India get closer and the U.S.-India strategic relationship warms, Pakistan is looking for an alternative, and China certainly is that. Also, for Pakistan, they have terrible problems with energy and infrastructure. China is quite good at building infrastructure, so there's a lot in it for them. But for the Chinese, what they need is this, as you mentioned earlier, this Gwadar port is critically important to them. Right now, 60% of China's oil comes from the Persian Gulf, but it goes to Shanghai, and that's through the Strait of Malacca. And that creates a stranglehold where if there were a conflict between the United States and China, the U.S. Navy would be able to essentially shut off Chinese oil imports. But if China gets not only access to this port in Gwadar, which now they have a management contract for, but also a secure rail and pipeline connectivity from Gwadar to Western China, that really is a strategic game changer for China. So that's ultimately what China is investing in here. Yeah,
Pakistan authorities also calling it a game changer. How big of a concern, though, for China? How big of a gamble in some ways that there is serious instability in the neighbourhood, in Pakistan itself, but also Afghanistan?
Yeah, well, it's a big challenge for China. That's one of the reasons why they are, an additional reason why they are making this investment, is if Pakistan can be more stabilized, if they can encourage Pakistan to play a more helpful role in Afghanistan, that could help stabilize Afghanistan, and that could have implications for China's Xinjiang province. The downside, though, is China is getting sucked into Pakistan's internal politics, and as the United States has learned painfully over past decades, that's a very dangerous place to be. The Gwadar port is in Baluchistan, and there's a separatist movement there, and so I would imagine that these rail lines, these pipelines are also, and the port itself, are also going to become appealing targets, and they're going to get potentially caught up in this internal strife within Pakistan, and that has to be a big worry for China, and that's why part of this deal is that Pakistan has promised to build a special security force to protect Chinese workers and Chinese interests in Pakistan.
That's a very good point. US officials quoted as saying that this all complements Washington's vision for the region. Do you buy that, given that the US wanted its own Asia pivot and influence there? You know, you've got the two biggest economies in the world competing for Pakistan's eye, and one doing it with commerce and the other doing it with aid, basically.
Yeah, well, the United States has to say that, and there is some element of truth in that. The U.S. has egg on its face right now because of its position on the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, which, as you know, Michael, the United States was against and now has softened. So certainly development in Pakistan is important for the United States, but there are a lot of elements of the China-Pakistan relationship which are, in fact, seeking to balance the growing relation between the United States and India, and not least of it is the military relationship between China and Pakistan. Pakistan is the biggest importer of Chinese arms, and China is now giving Pakistan $5 billion worth of submarines, which are very likely to be used. These aren't nuclear submarines, but these are conventional submarines, which will very likely be outfitted with nuclear weapons. So there's a lot of instability that will come from this, but there's also stability that will come from the economic development that greater interconnectivity of these economies will engender.
We're right out of time, but I've got to ask you, India, going to love it, going to hate it?
You know, India has an interest in economic development in Pakistan. So insofar as Pakistan will have more infrastructure, better access to energy, maybe a greater interest in trade, that will certainly be a positive. India-China relations are kind of a love-hate. I mean, there's certainly big problems, but that has the potential to be an important economic relationship. Maybe there could be a triangular relationship between the two, but China will use the Pakistan relationship as leverage. When things are going well with India, I think they'll tamp down on Pakistan. When things are going bad with India, then you could imagine that Pakistan would be emboldened to be more aggressive.
Jamie Metzl, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Thanks so much. Fascinating conversation. It certainly is quite literally a very big deal. Appreciate it.
It is. My great pleasure.